because some people don't know how should I think about what that number is. For me, for example, I was like, oh, if my life annual burn rate was X, and I wanted a certain amount of money where 4% or 5% withdrawals of that would mean I'm sort of staying neutral. Let's assume I'm getting 6% real returns in the market. If I was to withdraw 4% out to pay for lifestyle, that number of the bank account's never going to go down. It's only going to go up. That's how.
And yours, Sean,
exactly was how I calculated.
Years ago, Sean, you said yours was 6 million. But if I had to guess, that has changed as you've had a family.
Yeah. No, to be honest, can I say the honest answer is kind of ridiculous sounding, but like, it's not that, oh, I had kids and, oh man, I really underestimated, these diapers are expensive. That's not actually what happened. I remember one day I was like, okay, so I've done this. I was like, I kind of feel like a guy who should have $100 million. And I literally had a conversation with myself. I was like, I think I'm worth that. I think I should be like, I don't have to have it, but like, if I didn't have it, something would feel amiss. Something would feel a little wrong. And then I was like, okay, cool. I think I should do that. I didn't become my like North Star of like, I'm going to do this. But what I did do is I made sure that I would only work on things that either I was doing purely for the joy of it. It didn't have to bring in any dollars. Or if I was doing it because I thought it was going to be financially rewarding, the financial reward had to be big enough to make it to be like on that path, not a smaller path.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound
mine, I came up with my number exactly as you did, Sean. It was like, if I have a 4% withdrawal rate, what is the annual income that I know is going to be like easily, comfortably all that we're ever going to want to spend? And like, I just backed into the number. And Sam, to answer your question of like, once I hit that level, I kept working as I am now. And I don't think I was any happier, but I have less financial stress, less career stress.
Because that's happiness, dude. That's happiness.
No,
I see. That's such a cop out. I hate when people say money doesn't make you happier, but it just gets rid of money problems. And I'm like, yeah, when I worried about rent, I was unhappy.
See,
now I don't. I'm more happy. I'm not necessarily happy, but I'm happier.
I think we probably agree. This is like arguing over the definition of words, but I would say there's a big difference between happiness and a reduction of anxiety. I think those are very different things. Happiness is like you wake up grinning ear to ear, or it's like if you're watching the funniest comedy you've ever seen and you're just like laughing on the floor, that's a happy moment, but it's always fleeting. But to me, the reduction of anxiety or contentment, that is something that money can buy, and that is worth chasing. It's great. So like when people say money can't buy happiness, what they're implicitly saying is it's not worth chasing. I think it absolutely is worth chasing, but it's not going to give you happiness per se. It's going to give you contentment and a reduction of anxiety, which is wonderful. It's a massive increase in the quality of your life. But in my definition, it's not necessarily happiness. But I feel like I hit that. I feel like my wife and I were talking about this last night. I feel like I'm in a better mental state of like less anxiety than I've had relative to, 5 or 10 years ago, which is great.
You wrote The Psychology of Money. You've studied this a lot. I want to ask you, what are the biggest or maybe the most common leak? Instead of most common, I would say the most impactful psychological leak, meaning a psychological trap or mistake people make around money. And I want you to answer it for somebody who is kind of on the come up, so somebody who isn't totally financially independent yet, and then for rich people who still have a bunch of weird psychology and a weird relationship with money. I want you to tell me what you've seen or what you believe is kind of maybe the biggest psychological mistake people have around money in each of those buckets.
I think there's two. I'll start with one that's probably the biggest, which is social comparison, which is always, Sean, you just mentioned, you want to be a guy, you should be a guy with $100 million. I'm willing to bet if you told 17-year-old Sean that figure, you would faint. But it doesn't seem that ridiculous to you now because I bet you know people who are worth $100 million. And so who you compared yourself to when you were 17 or 25 is different now. And I think there's no end to that. If, and I hope you are worth $100 million someday, I guarantee you're going to start comparing yourself to people who are worth 200, 500, $1 billion. And that never ends. Never, ever ends. The point I always make is like the minimum wage in the MLB is like 500,000 a year, whatever it is, 400, whatever it is. A shitload of money by any definition if you're making $500,000 a year. And I guarantee you there's not a single minimum wage professional baseball player who thinks they're doing well because they're comparing themselves to their teammates who are making 10 million a year. And so there's no end to that, but you always think there is, which is why I, for myself, had this idea, once my net worth is X, I'm never going to work ever again. But now that I'm here, maybe it is because I'm comparing myself to other people, other authors. Maybe that's at least part of it. So I think even if I can write these philosophies and made a living talking about these, like I'm still susceptible to that as anyone else. I think everybody is. So I think it's such a natural thing. I mean, in all of evolution, what matters is not how much success you have. It matters that you have more success than the other person. Because in a competition for resources, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you're worth $1 billion. If somebody else is worth $1,000,000,001, they have more resources than you. And from an evolutionary perspective, they're going to win and you're going to lose. So that like always chasing no matter how much you have is a big psychological underpinning to people's anxiety. The second that I would mention that's probably equally as important is realizing that there is not one right answer for everybody. And everyone in finance is always seeking the right answer, like quote unquote, the right. It doesn't exist. I think it's much closer to like your taste in music of like, there's no such thing as the best music. You like this, I like that, to each their own. And a lot of times when you have a financial debate of people like, I can't believe you manage your money like that. Why don't you do it like me? You're not actually debating. It's people with a different risk tolerance, different social aspirations, different family dynamics who are talking over each other.